Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of the Mental Toughness and Body Show. Today we are going to tackle all of your insecurities to help you live a more fulfilling life. Now, many people live in constant fear and never leave the comfort zone of their limiting beliefs, but our guest today is going to show you practical strategies in overcoming the mental and emotional barriers that hold people back. Now, on this podcast, we've interviewed people from all walks of life, from your A-list celebrities, billionaires to Olympic gold medalists. And today we have life strategist, author, and speaker, Jaemin Frazer. Jaemin, welcome to the show.
Hey, Rob, thanks so much for having me.
So I guess my first question is, because it's particularly unique, the area where you spend your time, why? Why have you selected this part?
Oh boy, it's a tough question because I'm not really sure. In some ways, I think it chose me. I feel like what led me down this path is I'm very pragmatic. I have an engineering bent to the way that I see the world. I love the things that work. And so in my quest to be useful for people, I just kept finding that I was banging my head on limiting beliefs. That's where people were getting stuck. And the worst of those limiting beliefs were the self-limiting beliefs, the insecurities, the existential angst. And then I discovered my own mountain of insecurity that halted me in my tracks. And so first and foremost, I had to discover, is this a solvable problem? What to do with insecurity? Has anyone found their way out of this? And I don't claim to have invented the way to overcome insecurity. What I claim to have done was to discover that a solution existed. It just hadn't been modeled and made explicit. And so I found people who'd found a way to live unhindered by doubt, fear, and insecurity, and I reverse engineered. I discovered, how did you do it? And sometimes people didn't even know. They just found a way, but they weren't sure of the path. And so I had to know for myself how the path worked. And then that's what I've done. And once I discovered that it was solvable, I realized not only can you solve it, I'm convinced you must. I think it's our most important adult work to free ourselves from the limiting beliefs of our childhood. And then it felt like it would be incredibly unkind not to double down on this work. People suffer greatly for not knowing it's a solvable problem. So if I'm sitting on a roadmap, a solution, a plan, and I don't want to deliver it, well, how could I live with myself? So I kind of got ruined for anything else. When I branded myself the Insecurity Project, my business coach at the time said, "Oh, you can't do that. Like, that's not going to work. People are insecure about being insecure." And it goes against business rule. You know, you're not supposed to pitch the problem, you pitch the prize. So you should be the confidence guy, the self-esteem expert, not the insecurity guy. But nevertheless, I just thought, I'm just gonna get to the point. I'm going to address the hardest thing to talk about, and I'm going to do it intelligently and consistently from a place of wholeheartedness, smoking what I'm selling out of the overflow of my own discovery. And that's probably a long haul. You know, people will watch and listen for some time before they're comfortable, but when they're comfortable, they'll know where to find me. So that's kind of what I've done for the last almost nearly 10 years. You know, just talk about insecurity, and yeah, it's a solvable problem. I'm absolutely convinced about it.
Yeah, nice work. I just finished recording another podcast this morning, actually talking about how rejection is like the stepping stones, how to use it as the stepping stones to success. And I think as humans, we are so interesting. And I was reflecting on my own, I suppose, past, and I guess that's insecurities, limiting beliefs that were presented to me, which really started as a child. And because how do you measure your success? Well, based on the results that you're getting. And if you're not getting any results, and I guess, well, what in the early stage, it's a friend. Like, I didn't have any friends. It's like, why am I not getting friends? Other people have friends. Why am I being rejected as a friend? And then it was, I was probably in primary school and junior high school, well, even all of high school. I was probably a C to maybe a B average student. Never failed anything, but I found learning to be a challenge. We can learn differently now, but back then it was very different. So I'm 56, so we're talking like the early 80s and mid 80s. And then you go through life and you start to ask girls out. Everybody said no until I was age 23. That's a lot of rejection. Although what I found happened was you get rejected so many times, you just stop. you stop asking, you stop pushing, and then you apply for jobs, you don't get the jobs, and there's more rejection there. And then you get into, say, like my background is chartered accounting, and I went down that path, and then you apply for jobs, you get some jobs, you don't get certain jobs, and there's more rejection. In that for 19 years, start business, and then you've got to sell, and you get rejected from you're not picking up the sale. Oh, why didn't Jaemin say yes? Why, like, what went wrong there? And you can easily just sit there and go right back to when you were like bullied as a child and all that rejection, and just build it up into all these limiting beliefs that you have. So I guess that leads me to my next question is, what would you say are the common insecurities that people are facing?
Oh, there's only one. Which is hilarious, because insecurity survives because it goes unexamined, because it exists as an abstraction. People are afraid, and so don't look at it, and therefore fear becomes a monster. I love Jordan Peterson's Rule 10 in his 12 Rules for Life. Be precise in your speech. Things that go unnamed become monsters that consume you. And so people think they're afraid of failing or being rejected, but that's never true under scrutiny. That is not what people are afraid of. If that were true, that's the deepest level of fear. Well, then the solution is, well, the only way to never fail is don't try. And the only way to never be rejected is don't ever put yourself out there. So
Yeah.
they're not believable solutions, which kind of points to the fact you haven't arrived at the problem yet. So the real insecurity is just a level beneath it. It's more personal. It's, if I was to fail, what does that say about me? What does that reveal about me? Now you see me. If I was to put my best foot forward and then be rejected, what do you now see as true? And you find out who I really am. And so it turns out that people imagine they're afraid of what's out there, but that's never true. We are most afraid of what's in here. We are afraid of our own worst opinion about ourselves.
Hmm.
We just don't want it confirmed by the world.
Yeah.
So, and that is an opinion inevitably, without exception, formed before we're 7. We form these opinions about our inadequacy as a child, and then they become self-fulfilling prophecies and gather their own momentum, and often go unreviewed. So yeah, insecurity at its core is a fear of our own worst opinion of ourselves being confirmed by the world.
So I guess some people learn to manage an insecurity.
Mm.
I guess that's not as great as overcoming it. What's your
Yeah.
perspective?
Well, I used to be a bit dangerous because I used to be on a mission to eradicate insecurity. And then I heard myself say that one day, and I thought, oh dear, here we go. Now I sound like a preacher. No one wants to hear someone on a mission to do something. You're going to get something rammed down your throat. And then I looked at insecurity a bit more pragmatically and discovered that it can be like rocket fuel in your 20s. To have something to prove and defend, if someone slighted you, if you've been hurt or wounded, that can often provide such a powerful motivator to demonstrate, to prove, I'll show you, tell me again what I'm not going to do. And so, like, it works for a season. Some of the great sports players are driven by the need to prove themselves on the stage. And that taps into this extraordinary power. So yeah, let's not say it's right or wrong, good or bad. Let's say you can manage it, you can actually use it, but eventually, to be directing your best energy to prove and defend yourself, that eventually will eat you alive. That is toxic energy. It's a descent into madness, and it only really survives when you've got energy to waste as a young person. So I think the closer you get to midlife and beyond, you will have to face this fear, this examination. Who do you think you are? And to manage it, I'm not sure that's a battle you can win. I think
Mm.
management energy only survives when you have extra energy to throw at it, and when you get tired, exhausted. Midlife, you have to optimize. And so I would say the smart play is to actually address this insecurity all the way back to the beginning, and remove it completely, so that it is not there. You're not fighting against anything. You know who you are. You've resolved your opinion about yourself and changed your mind, and now you're free.
So I guess the first step in resolving something is to first identify it.
Mm,
How, in asking the question, it sounds silly, but
mm.
I guess it's also complex. How do people go about identifying what their insecurities are?
Well, I love the fact that behavior never lies. So Behavior is the end of the assembly line. If you would like to know what you actually believe, observe your patterns of behavior. What must you believe about yourself in order to behave this way? You want to know what you actually believe? Just watch yourself. Just watch the patterns against all your better judgment, all the things. I'm never going to do that again. I'm going to try and be better. Yeah, sure. But just watch how you actually behave as a pattern. And that'll reveal what you're afraid of very, very clearly. And if you're willing to go have a look, all the data's there. So that is the beginning place to solve this. As you
That
said,
requires a real level of, I guess, vulnerability and dedication to observe that, doesn't it? Because we can just accept our behaviors and make up, well, yeah, that might be okay for you, but I do this because
of
of
course.
whatever reason. But somebody, say you or me, looking at them could say, well, actually, see how you're just mindlessly eating donuts
That's right.
because you've been for a glass of water 3 times or a cup of coffee 3 times, and you brought back a chocolate chip cookie and now a donut, and you're just mindlessly eating that sitting at the keyboard. We say, oh, I need that because I'm hungry.
Yeah, that's right. It is hard, but no one. I mean, there are 7 essential practices. This is my life's work on the subject, and practice 3 is to stack the pain. So I would say no one solves this problem just by dedication and this willingness to be self-aware. People solve this because they're in pain.
Mm.
They go, hang on, like my life is actually not working. This is eating me alive. This is costing me more than it's giving me. No one wants to review their dysfunction. No one wants to go into the dark and look at their fears. It's instinctive to run and hide instead. So you get away with it for as long as you can until you realize your house is on fire. Like it's killing you. It's ruining your relationships. It's crippling anxiety. You're inefficient. You're exhausted. And then you go, man, yeah, there's pain in change, but there's more pain in staying the same. I suppose I'm now ready to examine things I've never been ready to examine before. And there begins a journey where you're kind of forced to become self-aware, or the cost of remaining ignorant becomes catastrophic.
What was yours? What was your greatest fear or insecurity?
Look, the fun of this is when you hear someone else's fear, like, really, you that?
Yeah.
Somehow our own fears are extreme. So my great fear was that I was average.
Yeah.
I was, and that was so troubling to me because I was an ambitious
Which
youngster.
sounds silly, doesn't it? But I understand that completely.
It does, but I wanted to be more than that. I wanted to be
Yeah.
excellent. I
Mm.
thought I belonged with the cool kids in the winner's circle. But as hard as I tried, no matter what I would do, it seemed to me very clear that I at best was average. I wasn't a bad kid. I wasn't terrible. I wasn't worthless, but I was not awesome. And so I felt doomed to exist in the vanilla middle ground. And so my insecurity was, well, if you see me, you'd see that there's nothing really appealing about who I actually am. So that was very troubling to me.
So
And
I just pause you there? So was that from a um, talking male to male? Because this
mm,
was my problem. The way that you physically looked,
mm.
and you didn't. Oh, is that what you were feeling, or was it just like from internally? I'm just not getting the results that I believe that I deserve.
No, it did have a physical component to it. One
Yeah.
of the defining moments, like when people are ready to examine this, it always goes back. There's a moment in time when you first come across this
Yep.
opinion, and there is an inception point. One of the key ones for me, my mum used to make all our clothes. She was a sewing teacher, and she thought that was wonderful. I didn't think that was so wonderful at all.
Yeah.
And there was, constantly being the home baked kid didn't help me, trying to be part of the winning circle. And so
Yes.
one day on my birthday, I said, Mum, all I want is some Stussy pants. I just need these Stussy pants that everyone
On
else is
fitting.
wearing to school. If I can have Stussy pants, my life is going to be okay. Okay, darling, I'll get you Stussy pants. Anyway, these pants arrive that Mum has actually made. They're the wrong shade of
Oh,
grey. They're slightly too short. And she's found a Stussy label from Vinnie's and cut them off and sewed it on top. And
oh
so,
no.
I'm going to school with clothes that are clearly not Stussy. And so
The
I
first
just thought,
knockoffs.
I thought no matter what I do, um, I am a Frazer. That is who I am. I cannot shake this. It is in my DNA. It's inherent to me. I am an average person in an average family. And so So it had definitely had a physical component to it. I was late maturing, went through puberty later than my friends. So I was smaller, I was skinnier, I was weaker. And that all just confirmed my suspicion that it was true about me. So
Yeah.
it became
Sounds exactly like me. I was the smallest kid in the school right up to year 10. Always the smallest kid. I'm only 165 centimeters now, but like I was a tiny, tiny little kid that
Mm.
I don't think I really finished growing till I was about 19, even 20. I was like growing at millimeters. I just had a client, actually, his son, um, he's since July, so in September, recording it. So in 8 weeks, he's grown 8 centimeters. I was like, I don't think I ever grew that much. So yeah, I hear where you're coming from. It's such an interesting journey, though, isn't it? I think one of my when I pull apart everything that made me up when I was a smaller kid, and you mentioned it before, but just the toxic ferocity of conversations I had with myself,
Mm.
not out loud, but just in my head, to constantly like beat myself
Yes.
down, and how it sounds horrible to say it out loud, but I thought I was worthless, that I'd never amount to anything. And because of all of that, so I was a weak person, like from a, um, well, I was weak as I was a little kid, but I'm not talking physical strength here. I'm talking that in internal resilience. Now, my greatest strength is mental toughness, hence the Mental Toughness and Body Show.
Mm.
Um, but it is now my greatest strength
Mm.
because of how I learned to use what happened in my past to create my thinking style now. Like people can say anything. I've got people around the world that, I've got a stalker. I've got all kinds of different
Mm.
things that people throw stuff at you. I lost my daughter last year to anorexia, and it's like even though there's sadness in that, it's like it just makes me stronger.
Mm.
So a question for you now: what's important to you right now, you personally?
Mm. Well, it is important that I do what I was born to do. I got to do a TEDx talk about purpose a few years ago, and I said, look, to solve the purpose problem, you have to solve the insecurity problem first, because lots of people who are purpose driven are just using something purposeful to demonstrate, to try and prove that they are a good person. Look at what I'm doing by this purposeful work I'm doing in the world.
Yes.
So it can't be a purpose to prove that you matter. Your work is to discover who you really are. Then you're free to connect with a purpose that's bigger than you and not even about you. So, so what's important to me is I feel that my life is really to surrender to something bigger than me and not about me. People suffer greatly for not knowing that insecurity is a solvable problem, and our world leaders are some of the most insecure men and women alive, and we suffer because of their leadership. And so,
Yeah.
um, it's important to me that for the sake of the planet, for the sake of the collective consciousness, people understand the game of insecurity. I love gamification. I love to understand, uh, you know, if you can apply game structure to non-game domains, it opens up a world of play. And so most people are so terrified by insecurity and the angst of their past and who they are and who they're not, that they never are willing to even look at it. But the moment you can consider it as a game, well, we only play hard games. That if a game is unlosable, no one plays it. There's no point to it. There's no intrigue. And so it turns out when you uncover the structure of being human and consider it as a game, it's a wonderful game. It's a brilliantly designed game. You shared an example of the obstacle is the way. You grow up in a challenging situation and you see it as an opportunity. You see, my goodness, this is a gift in the end. This is an opportunity to become who I'm supposed to be by overcoming something that's very difficult. So if there were no challenges, people often think if only I'd had a better childhood, a different childhood, then
Yeah.
I'd feel better about myself. That's not how it works. Even perfect parents don't prevent their children developing insecurity. It's it's inevitable and useful. It's a setup for you to come into the light, come into your adult years with work to do, to use your best adult skills to bear on yourself, to demonstrate who you really are to yourself by going back and reviewing the past. So it's important to me that people understand that, to alleviate some unnecessary suffering that they're going through. That's what's really important to me.
Do you think you've peaked?
Boy,
I did say I wouldn't ask questions you couldn't answer.
that's a lovely question, though. Thank you. I don't think so, but I'd be okay if I had. Which, that is strange hearing myself say that. That's not.
I again, I can relate to that. I'm 56. I do not
Mm,
think that I've peaked yet. I
mm,
think that makes it really exciting. But
mm,
then at the same time, I know that up to this point in my life, I've had a very full life. I've got a lot
mm,
more to give. I mean, I could live another 50 years or more,
absolutely.
based on how much work I put into my health and wellness and stuff. My genetics are fighting against me. I don't have a good genetics on both sides of my family, but I also know that, with a big career change that I had, I'm doing what I know I'm supposed to do,
Mm.
and it has a greater impact on humanity. And I've achieved a lot of success for my clients, for myself, my family, up to this point. But I do believe that the best of me is still to come.
Now, one of my favorite gurus is Alan Watts. I don't know if you're a fan of his at all, but he died before I was born. And lately, I don't know if it's just been lately or it's just become in my awareness lately, but his audio has become available in lots of channels on audiobooks and YouTube, and I've really enjoyed it. And so I'll be talking to someone on the phone, and then I'll click over to a podcast or YouTube with Alan Watts, and it's as though he's alive, even though
Mm,
he's not. And his words are so meaningful to me and very, very relevant, even though he's not here. And I think I look at the impact his work is having in the world now, and I think it's actually greater now than when he was alive, when he was actually here. And I think, yeah, perhaps that'll be how it plays out for me too. I've written 6 books. I feel like I have done my work. I'm not sure there's another book in me. I don't know that there is. I think I write about difficult subjects that are countercultural and counterintuitive. My latest book is called The Self-Permission Method: How to Succeed in Life Without Using Self-Discipline. People are like, what do you mean? That doesn't even make sense. I'm like, okay, sure. That's okay. You might not be ready for that, but it's true. So I'm actually really at ease with who I am and what I've done. And even if I don't see more fruit of that work in my lifetime, I would still be okay with that, which
yeah,
is a recent development in the journey of me being me. But I am at peace with who I am and what I'm doing.
yeah. That's based on. I mean, only your background and everything, but your pathway to now.
Mm,
But that's almost like you've succeeded in just being able to come to that point. I see, well, one of the reasons that I also changed career, like you're surrounded by like executives and, there's so many people that not just don't like their job, they hate it.
mm,
And I attended a wedding in December last year and spoke to this. I won't name the organization because the role is so senior that you'll be able to identify who the person is. And they were probably, I don't know, probably earning $400,000-500,000 plus a
mm,
year. And they were envious of the work that I did
mm,
because they really didn't like the job that they'd been doing, but
mm,
because of the lifestyle that they'd attached to the income and all that kind of stuff, it's like it's too hard for them to
mm.
leave, and they don't want to take that risk, so they just keep on doing what they're doing. So I think, yeah, kudos to you for being able to have that realization and just love what it is that you're doing. I think that's really powerful. What
Yeah,
would
thank
you?
you.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, no, thank you. I appreciate that. And it is true. I have a lovely lifestyle doing meaningful work. Um, I only work 24 hours across 7 days. I have a nap after lunch most days. I, I very much enjoy my life while
Yeah,
doing.
I mean, I work harder than I've ever worked before. I'm more focused than I've ever worked before. And I mean, other entrepreneurs and business owners get this, but like to get up each day and to work 14 to 16 hours, like that's incredibly rewarding.
Mm,
And some of my clients are employees, and you can hear them complain about stuff. And
mm.
it's like, I said, I had a really long day today. I worked from 7 till 6. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? That's not a long day. But your mindset just changes, right?
Yeah,
Because
sure.
you're more passionate about it. I was going to ask you, what's your superpower?
So practice 5 in the model is get help from someone who doesn't care about you. So it's very counterintuitive. When you are ready to deal with insecurity, you think you'd need someone who's going to believe in you, encourage you, hold your hand, support you, put air in your tires. It turns out those people get in the way. So my superpower is to be able to hold a clean space. When people ring me from a place of pain, my very first job is convincing them I don't give a shit about them. And that's strange because I know I look like a guy who gives a shit, but I
Is
would
this as a
not.
client or as a friend or both?
No, no, yeah, great. I care about my friends and I care about the work that I do. I just would not dare bring that caring across the table into a coaching conversation. My superpower is to be able to create a clean space where it is safe to actually turn the light on and have a look at anything. That you cannot implicate yourself. I don't need anything from you or for you. I know the way, but I won't get in the way. I will treat you as a responsible adult who's already created your current results and has all that you need inside you to create your future results. So that's a rare thing because I think, you know, every hero needs a guide, but there are a lot of people in the therapy space who are confusing the world about who the hero is.
Yeah.
They're in that helping space because they like rescuing people. They
Yeah.
need people to need them, and they pollute the space. They weaken the hero. They get in the way. They disempower people. They keep them in loops of victimhood for years and years so that they
Yeah,
have
that's right.
more conversations. So,
In many ways, your success is that the person doesn't need you anymore.
well, of course, which is against good business, but that is my work, is to solve a problem so that you are on your way. And so to do that, I don't need a person to become secure. Like I will not put my sense of success on their journey. They're on their own path. Whether they succeed
Yeah.
or fail is up to them. If they want to, they can. I know the way, but they will have to take responsibility for their own journey. And so I think that is a superpower. I haven't seen that, as a very common trait in the therapy space, but
Yeah.
it's,
Well done.
well,
What
it's
was it?
just because I'm pragmatic. So I think in the interest of being useful, I realize the more I care, the less useful I be, the more I get in the way. So
Yes.
if I'm going to be useful, then I must not rescue, or I must not even encourage. Like, encourage is the subtlest form of judgment because now I'm saying there's a right way and a wrong way. If you can get my encouragement, you can lose it. So,
Do you think that's something that has changed for you? Because I know my coaching style, for instance, has changed from like the very first client to where I
of
am
course,
now.
yeah,
And perhaps you're very pragmatic now because of
of course,
like the your past where you do,
yeah,
because you
yeah,
do in many ways as a coach, you want to, people are broken, you want to wrap your arms around and say, oh look, I'll look after you and so forth, and then you realize that actually that's probably not great. Like you're either, like you're getting too involved with their emotional state and they're not thinking clearly, you're not thinking clearly, etc. As
of course, yeah. That you learn by the failures and the mistakes. I realized that,
mm,
the more of my own wanting and caring I brought in, the less ability I had to serve, and so
mm,
that's unkind. It's really unkind. So a person thinks I'm being unkind by saying I don't care, and I'm saying, no, this is the most loving thing you've ever heard from me. And that is,
yeah,
I'll forget about you. I will not lose sleep over you. I do not need you to be secure. If you want to be secure, you can. I know the way, but this is not what I want for you. This is what you want for you. So, like, that is a rare conversation to have because all of a sudden it's now safe to have any conversation. And the moment you can have
yeah,
any conversation, very quickly you have the real conversations. And I'm not sure
yeah,
there's any
that's
other place where you get to have the real conversations because everyone wants something from you or for you. And so it's always dangerous to reveal the truth in case the
yeah,
truth is wrong or bad or upsets or disappoints.
yeah, very true. So what would you say is your kryptonite then?
um, well, watching my own family. So my son, I shared this on a podcast recently. He had a suicide attempt in the last 6 months. And so
Mm, I'm
that
sorry.
really, well, I mean, it happens, doesn't it?
Well, it happened
And
to me. Mm.
yeah. So there you go. And
And
just watching,
how old's your son?
so my son is nearly 18.
Mm.
Um, and so just watching my inability to solve that problem, just, I
So
know
he's
the
still here
answer.
though.
Of course, yeah. Well, sorry,
Yeah.
not of course, but he is still here. So, but just watching how much that impacted me, just going, I'm in a world where I solve problems. That's what I do. I'm pragmatic. I'm logical. People come to me, they pay me to solve problems. And here's a problem in my own world that I don't have the ability to solve. I can't fix that for him. I I'm not sure how useful I can be. I'll be here and I'll have any conversation, but he's not necessarily after my conversations. He's not ready for my wisdom.
Yeah.
So I think that was I actually did use that word kryptonite when I had that experience. And yeah,
It's a
so
tough one. I mean, talking dad to dad, and obviously we're, just listening to you speak. I mean, you're living in a country town, effectively in New South Wales. I come from a country town in Victoria. I
mm,
think a lot of our experiences are similar. The same thing. Like I was blamed for my daughter's illness,
mm,
and at 15, she took her own life because of the the treatment that she was having medically was worse than not being here.
mm,
And I think, man, I help all these thousands of people, and I couldn't even save my own daughter. Yeah, and whatever language I want to have to myself about that. And it's super, super tough because therefore there's still people that blame me now for her being not here
mm,
anymore. And they're professionals, medical professionals that should know better. And it's only because of my mental toughness that I'm still here, because
mm,
it would be very, very easy to go down that dark burrow of, self-pity, worthlessness, and whatever, because people blame you and you have a look in the mirror and say, well, actually, yeah, you're right. But that I know that's not the reality. And my daughter knew that that was not the reality either. Um, and it's one of those things where, I don't know, sometimes you're not going to be the person that solves the problem for them, and you just hope that you can provide them with the opportunities and safe places to fall, with the right people around them to help them navigate it. Because, like we've been talking here, it's their own personal journey, but it's so damn hard to watch. And trust me, the number of conversations I've had about where did I fail,
mm.
like,
Yeah.
where did the parenting style fail? What happened? Was it this or was it that? But it's like I call it like a well of despair. And I can tell you, having been down it for kilometers and kilometers, there's nothing but more grief and
Mm,
sorrow down there. There's no goodness. So you got to cap the well and just, try and do the best that you can. It's a tough one. I'm sorry you're having to go through that. But like, my hope for my daughter was just like these things did for me, that they become such a better version of themselves
mm.
because of it, which is easy to say, but they just, yeah, if only they could see what we could see,
Of course. Mm,
like see that part. But my heart goes out to you, and strength to your family and to him to, you know, become better than you, right? That's what our wish
mm.
is.
Exactly. That is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. I can't even imagine what it's been like for you. I've been lucky. You've gone through an awful amount of pain by the sound of things. So thank you for sharing.
I think it is one of those things that, like your insecurities, you've got to come up with the greater meaning for things, of
Mm,
why things are presenting themselves to the way that they are. And I like to think about life is putting this barrier, hurdle, wall in our way because it's saying that, well, you're not ready for that next point. And if you want to be ready for that, just like success in business, right? You just have to keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And when you think it's like that diagram we've probably all seen where the two people digging in a gold mine above each other, and it's like
Yeah.
it's just beyond that next pick into the wall, whatever. And I find success is very much like that. It's like you only fail when you stay down, and if you just keep on pushing through, you'll get the results that you deserve. But I always said to myself, do you know what? You put two people in the room doing the same thing, I probably have to work twice as hard as the person next to me that's doing it. I've always found that. I think my reading speed is below, oh, well, sorry, average or maybe a little bit below. Other things I'm sure cognitively I don't think as fast as other people, but um, I don't know another person in the world that's done as many podcasts as me. I've tried to find it. I've done over 3,600 podcasts. I can't find one person that's done more. So what does that tell you? You can have a great focus and a great work ethic, and you can focus on those controllable things to bring out what you want to, right?
Absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you two more questions because I'm so passionate about health, wellness, mindset, all that kind of stuff. Tell me a bit about what role that plays in keeping you high performing.
Well, I love the idea that the body craves health. So I think secure people are attractive people. They're healthier people because why wouldn't they be? There's nothing to defend. There's nothing to prove. They're free to show up at their best where it matters most. So I love the idea that when you break through the insecurity, discover who you've always been, change your mind about this assumed inadequacy, and you're free to actually relax and show up. Well, that looks healthy. So I experience great health. I love to run. I run, I've run 8 marathons in my time. I love distance running. So I'll be running most days. I love swimming and cycling as well, but running's my thing.
Yeah.
I enjoy the sun. I'm always outdoors. So like I watch people fight against themselves to get health. And I think if only you knew that that's based on a misunderstanding, if you
Yeah.
broke through that and discovered who you really are, your body actually would want to be healthy.
Yeah.
So yeah, it belongs and it's natural.
One of the changes for me, and I guess you change your thing as you get older, but I've been training for 36 years. And when I first started training, again, like late at 1988, 20 years of age, I just wanted to look bigger. I just wanted bigger muscles and all that. But years later, I realized it was about building my self-esteem and my self-image and not the muscles at all. But that was just my pathway to get there. Now, I think about health and what that means to me. And the older I get, I've got to double down on the health. And I find that I've added in focus and energy, because if you've got more of those things, you can do more of everything. And that's two things that I think people often don't think about when they think about health. And I just did another podcast yesterday, pardon me, where I said, if only you could take like an energy shot to say to people, if you just take this, this is what it's going to feel like. And when they can feel it, they're like, oh, wow, that. And they feel it for 24 hours, right? Because most of the time you're trying to explain, well, you're going to feel this, Jaemin, you'll feel more alive, you'll be more focused, you'll get better results in business, your career, whatever. But they're like, oh, yeah. But they can't relate to it because they've never felt it.
Sure.
So I do like those things. One more question I'm going to end with, but this has been really enjoyable. So much value that you've added here. Great insights into insecurities. We've all got them, and the limiting beliefs and everything. I think you've really helped us have a really great conversation here. If people want to connect with you, you said you've got this great quiz on your website, which I'm going to put below the podcast here. But tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, well, look, it's a vulnerable subject, but when you're ready to have a look at it, I've designed a scorecard to help you discover where is insecurity costing you the most in life, and where is it costing you the most in business. So it's nice to get some optics on that. It's easy to pretend that it's not costing you at all, but a big part of changing it is to realize, oh my goodness, it's costing you significantly. So yeah, where is insecurity costing you the most? You can find that at the Insecurity Project.
Nice work. And that's going to be the best way to get in contact with you.
Yeah, I mean, if you can spell my name, my parents gave me the advantage of a uniquely spelling name. I'm the only,
Well,
I'm
it's
the
on the
only,
screen here, so
the only
people can
Jaemin
find you
Frazer
on
in the world. So
socials.
you can, yeah, you can find me anywhere at that. If you can spell my name.
All right. So this has been fantastic. I'm going to give you the closing word. What's the best advice you've ever received?
Named must your fear be, before banish it you can.
There we go.
If you don't know what it is, you're afraid of, how in the world are you supposed to solve it?
Well done. Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks so much for having me.